So I'm live. I'm not sure if anything might have popped up on your screen or anything like that. If not,
not directly. Yeah, usually it has when you had said that, and I was like, oh, it's okay. And I was like, I'm looking for it now. It was like in the top recording. Recording hasn't stopped. Interesting. It was like to add yourself, add stream, and it was like a little button at the top.
Yeah. Show us.
It's all good, man. It's not that big. It's not that important. It's you know.
Yeah. If you find wherever that option is,
I think it's in your account settings. Like that's where I thought it was.
Yeah, but if you find it, like, and then next week, I can set it.
Yeah. It's all good. It doesn't matter that much.
Oh, guests can stream to their own destinations. I found it. All right.
Nice. Yes, perfect. Yeah, stream this to your audience. Perfect. It just came up. Okay, nice. Great. And then now I can stream it to all the platforms that I choose. I just choose stuff. Cool.
Yeah. Great.
And then it has, because I have a StreamYard account, it already has everything all set up. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Easy. That was awesome. Thanks, man.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. What's up, guys? All right. Well, let's get started, everyone. Welcome to the Anti-MAHA headquarters, where we are talking about science and how we are trying to defend it against the scrupulous attacks by the Trump administration. Unfortunately, it continues. Unfortunately, it's still it's relentless. I thought, Corey, you had a great article kind of like talking about the actual like numbers and stuff. And now, because the question has always been like, how many scientists are actually leaving? How many of them are actually leaving the country? And we thought there were some, obviously, but like how many? And this is like the first time I've ever seen like actual numbers given to it.
Yeah, it was a great article by Science Magazine /Journal, and it paints a very, in my opinion, a stark picture and a grim picture for the long-term research and development in the United States.
Yeah, I agree, man. They said 10,000 people, 10,000 PhDs have left.
Yeah, exactly. And they also do a comparison, although it seems like some of the decrease, or let's say the loss, did start in 2024, but then it really accelerated starting like last year in terms of like this precipitous drop off, and like pretty much all across the board. Like they do the analysis of the Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Agriculture, Department of Commerce, and it seems like also like the EPA is heavily hit, and the National Science Foundation, and pretty much, just about every agency that you can think of associated with science seems to be affected by that, unfortunately, or sadly.
Yeah, I mean, we can just go right down the list. I mean, it's crazy. The biggest seems to be in 2024 and 2025, the National Institutes of Health. 1,100 are in the NIH, which is, I mean, it's telling, right? They're trying to fracture the NIH so that they can better deconstruct it, so that they can create this nonsensical pro-diseased cohort of ill-informed people to usher in this new reality of like how, we're not going to study these medicines and stuff like that in order to actually the stuff that we developed, and then also on top of that they needed to fire all the scientists so that they could put a bunch of RFK lackeys in there.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's I would say also good that they include a section of the analysis in terms of trying to tease out some of the reasons for this huge loss of STEM PhDs, and like some of it's, and what the reasons are on paper and what the true reasons are. I'm sure it's hard to actually determine, but it seems like some of it is driven by retirement and quitting. But like, what's your is this actual true retirement or like sort of a forced retirement type of thing?
Exactly.
That's a hard question to answer, but it would not surprise me that this is not actually people sort of voluntarily or truly voluntarily retiring type of thing. I think there's more just sort of like maybe they also see the future on the horizon and they feel it's best to get out now type of thing.
Yeah, especially with those governmental jobs, you have such like a pension and stuff that you can, like you can get out with something if you get one, or if like they fire you, then it's like your pension's going to be less somehow. So it's like you might as well just take it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. FDA. So FDA is going to be the Food and Drug Administration. They're not going to, right? I mean, they're going to be, the FDA is responsible for certifying our food, making sure our food is safe, that we have, that we're regularly checking this stuff. So, I mean, just less scientists at the FDA means that they're not going to be, going through and authorizing and giving out new approvals for new drugs. I feel like a lot less.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how this will affect the timeline of drugs being approved. Obviously, I hope it doesn't affect, but I can't imagine that such a huge loss is not going to affect something that significant.
Yeah,
that does require, from what I understand, expertise, true expertise. I hope you have qualified and experienced people looking at the data and approving drugs in the pipeline. That seems pretty important to me.
I mean, that there are few people with like a lot of the expertise that's needed to know this stuff, and then also the people that are like inside these positions. They're just very few people have, for example, like expert knowledge, the world-class knowledge about different types of vaccines or any type of mRNA cancer therapies, and that's that kind of stuff. So it's just when you were talking about the level of expertise, it really is a pyramid where there's just less people that exist there. So you're firing probably the most experienced people in the world, literally. So there just aren't people to replace them.
And it's good that they also they quantify it, as in like pretty much at the top of the article, they give actual numbers in terms of like how many years of experience are lost across this number of employees, as in like pretty much literally hundreds of thousands or pretty much about 100,000 years of work experience is lost across those 10,000 PhD employees.
That's
for 2025. And then for 2024, it's less, but it's pretty much half that amount. As in even starting in 2024, it was around like 50,000 years of work experience lost across those PhDs. So pretty much from 2024 or starting in 2024 to today, it's approximately like 150,000 years lost of federal work experience with those PhDs now gone.
Yeah, that's awful, man.
And I don't know how you can quickly obviously I don't think the Trump administration has plans to make up for that. I think this is the trend that they want to go.
This is the point. The whole point was this. This is they want to they take over Trump's institution. And then the CDC is the next biggest one. So the CDC is going to be about, monitoring outbreaks, making sure that people are safe, and it's just like we're going to be less prepared for the stuff that we do have, right? That we do actually have going on in the United States that's outbreaking. So we're just going to have less monitoring, less people knowing in the know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess you can say you're measles free if you never track it, right?
Exactly. Or literally with COVID, right? We
Yeah.
just stopped the funding the bio wastewater, and now we just have magically we have a lot less COVID.
Right. And there's obviously the consistent issue of avian influenza as well and all that stuff, which I think is very important to track, but that's just me. I'm not an expert at these things.
Sorry, but going back.
Yeah. Sorry, but quickly before I get started, hey, I put the stream together link in our group chat. Dr. Greg, you might not be familiar with it, but it's just like a thing on Twitch where you can you kind of combine your views and like it boosts your exposure. So all you gotta do is click on it and accept, and you'll be in there with us.
Thank you.
But yeah, no problem. But in any case, back to this. I mean, this is nothing new, but I think this is like an expanded or a more aggressive tactic that's being used to like undermine expertise, right? And in data-driven analysis, because like, look, I'm not gonna like when I say it, right? They never like when you say it, but reality has a well-known liberal bias, right? Like it just has to be the case, right? And so like oftentimes, like you see, I got a tiny bit of a story here. But like oftentimes you see like these conservatives who are pushing like their fever dreams that aren't based in anything, right? Just like regular conspiracy theories that just like come out of the swamp that is their media ecosystem, and then they get exposed to the real world. Like it takes a while to like usually like incubate, right? To metastasize really over there before it spreads outside of containment. And then they're talking about something that the rest of the world has no idea what the hell you're talking about. Like we haven't, like they're talking a different language because they like have a whole made up set of facts. And the thing that people reach to, right, are these institutions, right, like National Institute of Health, a very good one, for actual data. It's like, okay, you're making these wild claims. Well, let's look at the data and let's look to experts who are good at analyzing these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they say the exact opposite of the crazy thing that you're saying, right? And like this happens on small scales with like one-on-one conversations between individuals, but also happens on large scales where like even politicians are challenged with like what they're saying, right? And so losing these PhDs and like doing things to like undermine the census, for instance, is another thing, right? Like to undermine census data because they don't want you to know like which demographics are in which places and which of them and be able to deliver resources to them, right? Or to understand larger trends that might inform policy that might benefit anyone who's not white, honestly. So that's just like, so all of this, as I'm saying, is just like part of the larger fight. I actually saw and last thing I'll say, there's this okay. So some of the audience might be familiar with this. What's this guy's name? PBD, the
Patrick Bet David.
Patrick Bet David. Yeah, Patrick Bet David. He's got a whole like mini conservative eco system, right? Like a media like little empire he's built.
Yeah, definitely like an empire.
Yeah. One of his more recent shows is a program called Her Take. It's just like an all-female version of his like usually like male-dominated panel.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
There's wild clips on there.
Yeah, some wild clips. I just seen one 2 days ago, in which the like there's this woman who is presenting as some sort of doctor, but like she's deep into the whole Maha thing, right? This blonde woman, I forget what her name is, but she's like deep into like the Maha sphere, and she talks about like how when she was traveling from her hotel or wherever, right, to the studio where they film, and she was using ChatGPT on her phone, and she was like saying that like yeah, like the entire time I was driving, I was screaming at ChatGPT because she was asking it a question, and it wasn't giving the answers that she wanted. Right? It was asking. She was asking about nutritious foods, and by that she meant like, what are the benefits of raw milk? Um, and like ChatGPT was like, exposing her to reality. um, and she was like, so I she presented this to her co-host as like, how like these like machines, basically she was like presenting it like it was hallucinating that like raw milk is a fucking sorry, it's a hazard. So it's a damn hazard there, right? And so she's like, well, I kept like yelling at it, and by I guess like text to speech, but like basically prompting it, right, to like give me the real answer. No, that's a lie, Chat GPT. Give me the real answer, she kept saying, and trying to like coax it to like tell her what she wanted to hear. um I had a friend who unfortunately he passed away, but like he talked about this, how um like uh like AI, despite like the hallucinations, which is a real thing, right? But that's relatively a small percentage of the responses. But like for the most part, AI has done like this thing where it's like exposing others to like to information in a readily available package. Um, and like it's forcing conservatives to like once again have to deal with data in a way that they haven't had before. You can see this on Twitter, right? Where like
Talk is a great
people
example
get
of this. Yeah.
yeah, people get in a Twitter argument, right? And a conservative will be like, well, I'll show you, right? At Grok, like, is this true? And then they find out, oh no, right? So but that's part of the problem, right? So all this data being freely accessible, they've even talked about, and this is a larger conversation. I brought this up like actually maybe on our first stream together
Mhm.
here. But just like how like they even want to like undermine AIs, right? By like putting like bad information out there so they can suck it in and then spit it out eventually, for like your different special interests. But in any case, right, like this is all part of the plan, right? Everything that we've been talking about, the PhDs and all that, all this is part of the plan to undermine that foundational data ground that we all are standing on, right? Like
Mm.
once you undermine that, then you can't have these interactions, and then you can start making your unreality. You can make your imagination real because no one can say anything against it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's so true. I mean, that's why, look at the Department of Commerce. Like, so these layoffs, like 1,200 people in NOAA, 250. Oh, thank you. 250 fired. I mean, obviously that's because NOAA tracks climate change. It's like that's it. They want to try to change that. The Census Bureau, 300 people that work there, 46 are fired. The Geological Survey, which it would be for like they're basically trying to expand oil and fracking operations. 1,400 people hired, 200 people fired. So it's like they're just huge chunks. They're having it so that they can do exactly what you're talking about, like rewrite this reality, and and put out just straight disinformation from the government. I mean, it's just wild. Just like the White House has done with Lab Leak, just like how they've done with January 6th, just like how they're going to do with everything else. Like they're trying to push, just like they're doing in Minneapolis, right? It's just they're trying to construct this narrative, and it's like the 1984 references just keep happening, right? It's like I always thought that was such the craziest thing. Like, never believe your eyes and ears. That was the most essential command, and I could never understand that. Like, how could people not get that? How could people just not use their own eyes and ears? How could you possibly stop using them? And now we see it. Now we see it happening.
I think one of the most interesting interesting and also maybe harrowing in some respects of like you described, Prime, in terms of like these people going back and forth with AI or like with Grok on Twitter, and let's say confronted with the reality, but then you also see that like they don't want to confront reality. Like they will literally like go back and forth like over like 12 messages or like 20 messages, but then at some point when it's when they're confronted with the reality and they don't want to accept it, like then the accusations are like, well, Grok is obviously captured by the woke mob, like. Elon has to go back into his lab and retweak the settings on Grok to make sure that it spits out the true reality. Right?
They'll sometimes literally like tag Elon, and he'll say like, "Yeah, I'll do that."
And I hope we don't end up living in this world, but it's probably in the pipeline. But just as we have Wikipedia, which is the mainstream one, and like Conservapedia exists, I'm pretty sure not very many people actually visit it, but I'm sure there's going to be in the pipeline, if not already. Well, I think Grok is trying to be that, like whatever the right-wing version of AI, where yes, it can, let's say, spit out the quote unquote facts or reality that you want. But yeah, it's I don't know how that's going to end up.
This is like my theory that like these deep neural network based LLMs are going to constantly go towards science and like data that's produced from science, because that's more meat for it to chew through, and more like connections that it can go through, and that means that it's a bigger database it can pull from, so inherently it's going to be scientifically biased. So there's actually a conspiracy based LLM that's being pushed out. It's specifically taught and just on the conspiracy networks, trying to push all these conspiracies together. And like that's what they're going to be like using. But yeah, it's one of these like the right-wing free speech sites. They're pushing it now. So it's
and even just with the example that you gave, Prime, of like this person going back and forth with ChatGPT on just like the claims of raw milk, like this is like a basic claim, and it's not like whatever big milk. Like milk is already pretty big in the United States, from what I understand. Like it's the raw milk industry that is like what I don't know how much it would take, but I'm pretty sure it can take considerable more money to like capture this entire ecosystem just to push the narrative of like raw milk being good or bad. Like,
yeah,
it makes people sick, guys. I mean, that's just what it is. Like, why would the government want their population to be sick? If you're capitalists, like, you want people to be alive and functioning well so that they can spend money. And if they're sick, they're not doing that. It's like, it's very simple.
But yeah, I think you're right, Prime, that the overall end goal is pretty clear of like, already it's already happened. Like, if there's no actual shared reality, then we can't have a conversation, right? Or we can't actually have any meaningful conversation and come to a common ground when like, we just, from our own perspectives, like we live in separate realities. Like, and if we can't come to consensus on like raw milk, on whether it's, let's say, overall a net good or net bad, it's like, well, then what can we come to consensus to?
It's fucking just pasteurizing milk, like pasteurization, like among, because I get, like, I don't agree, but like I understand like the thought process behind vaccine hesitancy, right? Like, hey man, you're gonna take this like syringe full of fluids, right? Who's like provenance? Like, I don't know. Like, I can't like as a layperson, like I can't really examine that whole process as to like how this thing is created. I don't understand the science, right? Like, especially for a person who like knows nothing about like biology or like whatsoever. I think if you have like a basic high school education, it's actually not too hard to grasp. But still, I get like where they're going. Right now, you're gonna stick this in me. Right. And then from there, you can start making like connections, right, in your head as to what happens afterwards. Right. So it's like you can, there are, actual side effects that can happen with any particular vaccine, actual adverse reactions, and then there's anything else that you connect there, right? You can see how this compounds, and then people like push against it. But with raw milk, like in pasteurization, it's a very simple process, like a very simple process, right? With like straightforward results. Like I don't know, like what, just why? It's like you've been drinking this milk, you've been drinking pasteurized milk your entire time, your entire life, right? Did you think like, oh, I was like denied a superfood, and if it wasn't for that, like I'd be like, I don't know, a genius now? Like what the?
Yeah.
Like, what is this thinking?
I agree with you, and like I haven't done like a huge, I haven't gone down the huge rabbit hole of, like looking up all the reasons why people seem to have championed this aspect of raw milk. But well, at least one of the talking points that I hear is like, well, obviously they're for raw milk because they think like this is the healthier version of milk.
Yeah.
Pasteurization is like the like whatever. Going to maybe the conspiracy of like, it's the pasteurized milk that, that's the government's way of like mind controlling you, going to that extreme. If you think that's the case, you could just not drink milk at all, period, and you can live your life like just fine.
I mean, it's the same line of thinking of like raw foods are like better because they think that like cooking it like takes away some of the nutritional value or something. Like they're, like the nutritional value isn't in bacteria that's going to make you sick in milk. It's the proteins and all that kind of stuff. So it has nothing to do with that. But they have this weird notion of like, pasteurization just removes all the nutrients, which is completely false. And like, that's just not how your body works. And that's just completely wrong.
Yeah. But I can understand conspiracies about, let's say, poisoning the water supply, okay? Because like water, you can't really live without it. But if someone's either poisoning or making unhealthy version of milk, you could just not drink it and live your life just totally fine and be healthy in every other way.
Yeah, I mean, it's because I think it's so anathema in the United States that we do anything like healthcare wise for the public good that people are very skeptical of it. You know what I mean? They're like, really, we're really doing this for the good of the public to put fluoride in the water, and it's like, yeah, it's just so easy and we can do it and it doesn't have any harsh effects at the levels that we do it at. So yeah, it is safe. The problem is that you have like some studies that like have a ton of fluoride that are like injected, into the brains of these mice or whatever, and you're just like, of course, that's gonna be toxic. And then they look at that and they're like, see, like look at that. But that's not the levels of like fluoride that people get, and it's just not. Yeah, Dr. Mommy MD in my chats is talking about how people are uninformed, and I agree. People believe what they want. I think people believe what their algorithms push to them, and that is what they believe rather than material, the things that they observe with their eyes. So they believe that these government agencies have been taken over and people are nefariously like, trying to do bad things to them. So they're trying to, and it's like, but they're projecting, right? Because they are that evil person that is taking over the government services in order to do bad things. So it's like, yeah, they figure that everyone's doing that, so it's like, no, people aren't, not everyone.
And I just find it so strange, although not surprising, but like as the points are brought up multiple times, and the overall fundamental point is like pretty much this is the plan of like, sort of like undermining the information landscape. But then like, one of the talking points or one of the reasons why there's, let's say, mistrust against some of these institutions, especially these health institutions, is like a lot of the right sees someone like Dr. Fauci as like a liar. He spread lies during the pandemic. Obviously, I don't necessarily think that. I think he definitely made some mistakes, but would I put him as a category of like, a nefarious liar? I wouldn't. But then, as you brought up, Greg, we see it now. Like these people are literally lying to your face when we have video evidence of things.
Exactly, dude.
Right?
And it's like the biggest thing that they constantly say is that Fauci made money during the pandemic. That is their biggest thing, which is a complete lie. that he has all the patents for these vaccines, which he doesn't. But
he has them all in his back pocket, I'm sure.
yeah, but guess who does make money on anti-vax lawsuits? RFK. He does. He gets millions of dollars in payouts because he refers people to anti-vax lawyers. Anti-vax lawyers give him money for the referral, and then every time that they sue one of these pharmaceutical companies and they get a payout from, he gets a cut of it. So he and actually what's her name, Elizabeth Warren, asked him about this. He said, are you still going to make money off of your Merck lawsuit? Because you regulate Merck right now. Like, so do you think that it's a little unethical that you're actually getting paid out by anti-vax lawsuits while at the same time that you're charged with like regulating Merck? And he's like, yeah, of course. Why would I stop getting paid out? What are you talking about? So it's
I remember that hearing. I don't remember exactly what his answer was, but like, yeah, I remember that hearing when she asked that question, which was, that was devastating. It's like, that was devastating.
That's
Yeah.
that's the crazy thing is that like Fauci doesn't have that connection, but RFK does, and he's like, yeah, I do it. Yeah, I do. What's up? What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
It's wild, man.
It's interesting how, and I mean, I agree. I think I don't know, the COVID situation, the pandemic, it was a test of our public health infrastructure, and one I think we failed in so many ways. Um, I feel like early on we had a lot of buy-in from the public at large, but like those mistakes that like Corey was alluding to, by Fauci, and like not just him, but like the rest of the administration, those were devastating, and they have long-lasting effects that we're still dealing with right now. Um, like the thing with the masks, right? Like, oh, the mask, you don't need masks, but then apparently you do. But they were trying to conserve the protective equipment, like that. That's huge, right? I remember like arguing with people about this when all this was happening, and that like had a lasting impact. So there's that, but also uh like I really like your point, Dr. Greg, when you said that, like we're not used to the government doing anything for public health, because like the government used to be like heavily involved in public health, right? Like in terms of like our vaccines and like our medication, right? A lot of it would just come from the government. And they would like run like large like health programs to to like just like handle problems like directly, right? Like without needing a profit, right? Like our health infrastructure looks so much different than it did like 100 years ago. Now it's all been privatized, and so if it's not for a profit, then people are like, well, this must be fishy, right? Like having a free COVID vaccine, right? Like, okay, so the government is now like all of a sudden subsidizing vaccines, right? Well, that seems a little fishy. I know I have to pay for these things, right? From my all of a sudden very much trusted like big pharma, right? Big pharma was trusted with the other vaccines, but this vaccine in particular, not so much. I don't know. It's a tangle. It's a whole web. But in any case, the point is that now all of a sudden I don't have to pay for this. Like what are they up to? And in that space, like all this blooms. And so like
You have to be inherently suspicious of something free, or like that you're not.
yeah, but like, I mean, but like it's just it's like the COVID situation was a study in how easily trust can be lost, right? Especially in a situation that like people clearly, right, can't fully comprehend. They've never experienced a pandemic, right? They don't know apparently how vaccines work, which is just an indictment of our education system. They don't know. They didn't know like what would happen to them in their life. Like they watched their livelihoods like disappear. Like businesses closed down and disappear because of the response, right? From the government was not adequate enough to keep all those businesses around. So there's a lot of frustration there. And then that like toxic soup, like bore like the poison fruit of Maha, right? And so like we have to really consider this for public health efforts going forward, right? How easy it is to lose trust and how like essential it is that we like make campaigns to educate the public so they really understand what's going on, right? Like give them information from a ton of different sources, bring in stakeholders, bring in trusted individuals from different communities to like really educate the public to make sure they understand what's going on. So it's not like powerful forces acting around them that is outside the control, right? This larger government doing things that they don't understand. Like that leads to exactly the situation we're in now.
Yeah,
We
I
should
don't.
say that specifically though, that the loss of trust is specifically only from Republicans, like the Pew polls and stuff. It only has dropped 30 points to like 60% in trust in public from like a 90% only for Republicans. So like Democrats like are the same. Independents have dropped like 5 or 10%. It's not it's a little bit, but like really it's just Republicans that have lost their faith in science.
And as I think we see in this administration, like no matter how many lies they tell you to your face, like the right will not abandon like people like Kristi Noem or Kash Patel. Like they, I don't see.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's the calls exist for Kristi Noem to whatever either step down or whatever. I don't know if you can actually fire her, what the process would be, but like I think she's just going to be like just going to be business as usual.
Yeah, I mean they're going to continue. I mean their entire livelihood like depends on this. I mean that's the thing, is that everything that they have is dependent on people believing the lie. Man, I think that that's the difference, is that like science and reality can be independently verified. Grifting requires someone to constantly be lying to you, and if there's not someone lying to you, then you're going to eventually conform to reality. So that's the thing. Like, when is this not going to be a money pit for people? When are they not going to get money, get paid for this stuff? And I think you're going to see it when measles starts ramping up. You're going to have lots of people like spreading disease, and basically you're going to have people losing their life over it. And you're going to have I mean, I've debated these Republicans. They're like, well, I mean, it's not a bad thing. We should let it spread. And you're like what? Why would you? Well, the thing how you fix measles is you let it spread more. Like it's wild, but that's what they believe, because they don't think that it's an actual like disease that's worth fighting. But it's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. I take and agree with Prime's overall point. Like these are things that, well, hopefully there's obviously no other major public health issue that we have to deal with, or global public health issue, but probably on a long enough timeline that will happen. But then like, what are the lessons that we learn, or like, how do we factor in hopefully the lessons learned from the COVID pandemic? Like there's like any mistake you make is going to be held account, or is going to be held against you. Like pretty much you have to like play it perfectly, otherwise you lose trust. That seems like an impossible situation to be in.
I mean, especially within the social media age. And I think that like the fact that Republicans, like according to the poll that our friend Dr. Greg read, have like, that's where the trust seems like it has a significant drop and sustained drop. That it must be like the conservative ecosystem, like keeping them in that frame of mind. So yes, you're correct, Corey, in that like that trust could be lost easily. But like we also have to understand there are forces who specifically benefit from that loss of trust, right? It gives them an opportunity to sell, right? To say that, hey, these doctors don't know what they're doing. I know what I'm doing. You're trusted like a social media star here, right? So like I've come up with some black box like supplement, right? Put this in your body. Like you know me, and when have I ever sent you in the wrong direction? So um, like, and if you can realize, like God, like it really is not thinking more about what Curry just said. Like it really is an impossible situation, right? Like if some idiot like that, like fuck, like goddamn RFK, like RFK, can like and who's like not nearly like he's not nearly as smart like as you would think he should be to have accomplished these things. He's like not like
He's
he's
a
a
lawyer.
person of average intelligence, right?
He's a lawyer.
Yeah, and he's just like,
Storytelling.
but like like someone like him and others who are even less talented than RFK can like undermine the public's trust in the government, in science, in knowledge in general, right? Like how do you actually maintain a good relationship with the public, right? When it's just like so easily lost, when we're just members are just so easily bamboozled. And the only thing I can think of, honestly, is just like, well, one like of a foundational education starting from K through 12, right? That like, yeah, that's actually really important. It's really important to invest in people, right? An educated populace is a populace that just can't so easily be fooled. So that part's very important. But even past that, yeah, like there has to be just like continuous interventions. And you know what? Another thing is that I'm just thinking of right now, is like building up trust outside of the emergency, right? Um, like outside of a massive governmental, like hopefully once in a generation, once in a lifetime intervention, right? Like what is our public health response? Like how, like as an individual, and I'm sorry, I'm going on here for a little bit. But
Okay.
like as an individual, like what is my relation, John Q. Public? What's my relation to the public health system, right? I understand my relationship to the private health system, right? I understand the costs associated with that, right? I understand a lot of the pitfalls there, but like, what is my association with like the U.S. government provided like public health? And if there is no relationship, or a very little one, or a hidden one, then I guess it should be so surprising that, um, uh, in an emergency, this like basically new player in people's lives, like is so easily undermined, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah, man. I just to bring up the data that I was putting on. Basically, the question was: Republican support for public school MMR vaccine requirements continues to slide. So, all U.S. adults in 2016 were at 82, saying that the healthy children should be required to vaccinate. So 82 said yes, and then 17 said parents should be able to not vaccinate. And then U.S. adults in 2025, so nearly 10 years later, 69%. And so basically jumps from 17 should be able to decide not to vaccinate to 30%. And we can look at the Democrats, which are completely flatlined. Actually, it goes up. So Democrats went from 83% in support of vaccines, required vaccinations, to 86%, which is in the margin of error. So I don't think that's like significant. But the Republicans go from 79%, which is within the margin of error in 2016, to 52% in 2025. And in other words, parents should not be able to vaccinate goes from 19% in 2026 to 47%, more than doubles in that amount of time. I mean, and when you have to when you require 85% for for herd immunity, when you have 40% of the country, sliding from 80%.
That's not 40%. No, that's not 40%.
Well, MAGA, I mean, people that are
Yeah.
Republicans, are Republicans.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me. It's like 60% don't vote, and then like 20%. So anyway, the point is that there's a significant
population. Yeah.
There's enough just in the Republican base in order to slide us into not herd immunity. That's my point. And we're seeing that, and we're seeing them like take out our public health, like that. They're attacking it. Like there it is. I mean, it's just right in the numbers. It's wild. It's wild.
Yeah. Sorry. But like, I really do want to focus in on this thought of like, no, that's fine. And I want to hear what your thoughts, both of your thoughts on this. Is that like this idea of like building trust like outside of an emergency? This is, I think, true for many other many other institutions, right? Like in terms of policing, right? Like how do you get a person to call the police when there is an emergency, right? Well, the police have to have a good relationship with that person in that community, right? Like beforehand, like they're like regular interactions with the police like have to be like generally positive, and they have to have a sense that like, you know, like when they call, like they'll be listened to, they'll be taken seriously, and that like they'll like handle the problem in a professional manner, right? But again, with public health, like when you're looking to like the Scandinavian countries, right, or actually not even just them, just like Europe in general, like Western Europe in general, right, like where they have like the a public health system, like a either single payer or you know, Medicare for all type situation, right? Like a government funded system. Like that is their exposure to public health on a regular basis, right? Like you have infrastructure there that the regular individuals, civilians are exposed to. Like they know these people are work for the government. They get information from the government, and I regularly approach them, and like without any cost, I get care. That is all normal to the public, right? And that builds like trust over the years. And then when this emergency happens, they're like, these are the people to listen to. On the other hand, like the Americans, like are experience with the healthcare system is oftentimes extremely contentious, especially if you have shaky healthcare, right? Coverage, healthcare insurance coverage, or none at all. And it's just a lot more unstable, you know, unless you just happen to have money in a good good situation or a good job, right? Like and exposure directly to, again, a government provided healthcare is just non-existent. So then now when the government's stepping into healthcare, right, there is no trust here. So like it feels like it just makes sense that it was so easy to undermine, right? I feel like it's like this exact playbook that was run here in America social media could not be run to the same efficacy in other places with, you know, government provided healthcare. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's a really good hypothesis. I totally agree. I mean, you definitely have some like some national, you know, public health like buy-in, you know, just by having that everyone like just for like the greedy stage of like, dude, every single measles case costs us $45,000 and the vaccine's $100. Like, don't cost me $45,000. Just get the vaccine. You know, if you're just thinking about capitalism from the most greedy, you know, ROI, it's an 11-to-1 economic buying power. Vaccines, like they're insanely high. But I think that, you know, I think that even with public health, I think even if with a national, you know, a national program, you know, I think that it's pretty singular. I think it's singularly because of Trump. I mean, he's sowing distrust, and I don't know if there is anything that you could do in order to do that when the disinformation is coming from inside the house and at the top. You know, they think that he has information that nobody else has because he's the president. In reality, he's the least educated.
He's an idiot.
Yeah.
Corey?
And yeah, I agree with your overall point. So, as a Canadian that has regular access to publicly funded healthcare, and I have no problem saying, as unfortunate as it is, as in I am a heavy user of our public healthcare system. Thankfully, not recently, but you know, throughout all my life, I've interfaced a lot with our healthcare system, and it's pretty much as much as I have a lot of criticisms of our healthcare system, I've received nothing but great care in my experience. But I know that doesn't track to every single Canadian. Do I place absolute blind trust in every single aspect of our healthcare system? No, definitely not. But overall, when I've interfaced with it, like with nurses, to technicians, to doctors, et cetera, of the people that I have experience with, like from everything that I can tell, or just sort of, and this is just based off my intuitions, like they're there largely out of good intentions of wanting to actually help people. I'm not looking to make people sick. Obviously, bad actors exist, but pretty much every single healthcare provider that I've been interacted with, like I've always had pretty much almost universally positive experiences, and that has, maybe I have too much trust in our healthcare system, but like I think that is a testament to what you say of like pretty much from since I was born, like my experience is like going to the hospital, and like even the question was like how is this going to be paid for, is just like not ever in my mind type of thing. It's like I've been to the ER many times, and it's like I go in, and yes, sometimes I would be waiting a long time, but then I get treatment, and I get, again, in my experience, pretty quality treatment. And
And
that is
in American ERs, you wait a long time too. Like if you've ever gone to an American ER, yeah, that also
from what I
happens.
hear, it's you come in and you get like the royal treatment, like right as you walk through the sliding doors, and
They're
at
paying
least
for it, man.
of
You know what I mean?
of all
They're
the debates that I have with people between Canadian healthcare system, it's like how it's framed is like there's no wait times, and all
That's
that stuff.
crazy. Yeah, you have to wait for weeks for appointments. Sometimes, especially you go to new to a healthcare provider, right? Sometimes you have to wait for weeks. And then even if you're established, right? Sometimes it actually can be quick. It depends on which one, right? Sometimes it can be actually quite quick, like the next day.
Mhm.
Other times it can be significantly longer. But again, it just depends on the establishment you're at.
Yeah,
Dude,
exactly. And there have definitely been times, the rare times of like depending on like the situations or like the procedure, I have had to wait, but I've never really had to. Well, let's say, given my experience, when I go to the emergency room, like it is a true emergency. I know how to sort of like triage myself at this point, so to speak. And it's like when I'm going, I know that I probably won't be waiting very long, unless there is like I don't know, like a gunshot wound or something like that, which is pretty rare, thankfully, in Canada. So that frees up some medical resources, probably, I would imagine. But like, yeah, but like for some, let's say procedures of like, whatever, like an MRI or something, and like this is like an MRI, like this is not an emergency situation. Like my doctor just wants me to have an MRI just for like, maintenance things. And it's like, okay, yeah, maybe that's like a 4 to 6 month wait because it's not an emergency. It's like, this is just sort of regular routine healthcare maintenance. And so it's not a pressing matter. So yes, I would have to wait. But of all the times that I needed urgent medical care, again, for me, myself, I've always received it in a timely manner.
like Canada's an interesting counterpoint to both of our hypotheses, Prime, because it's like they have national health care and they have a giant measles outbreak that's still ongoing. And then on top of that, they don't have a demagogue as president pushing disinformation, and they still, which is my hypothesis, and they still have herd immunity problems. Like, and we looked at the epidemiological report for Ontario, and it's like basically it's the rural outskirts. It's not the cities where the stuff is happening, where you'd think would be the natural inclination to that would be where the hotspots are, but no, it's all the rural counties, and they
MAGA country. But that's like these people are heavily influenced by MAGA, right?
They're
like
97% unvaccinated. 97% unvaccinated. So it's a giant unvaccinated population.
97. 97 unvaccinated.
So no, the positive measles cases are 97%
I see.
unvaccinated. So it's like it's strictly, and the same thing that we're having with South Carolina, by the way, too. It's like it's kind of wild. The measles vaccine is 97% effective, meaning that if you have the measles vaccine, you'll actually get measles about 3% of the time, and that you actually see in the data too. That's actually pretty insane.
And that has more or less, from my understanding, that has always been the case. But for whatever reason, something has been implanted in Republicans or MAGA's mind of like, if it's a vaccine, it has to be 100% effective. As in, to qualify as a vaccine, there has to be no chance of you ever getting the infection or whatever it is that you're vaccinating against. Like,
but
I don't think that was ever the case, ever. At least I was never under that impression.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, but even the question that I always ask the people that I'm debating is like, okay, so then how do you feel about the rabies vaccine? Because the rabies vaccine is 100% death rate. So you either take it or you die.
And even the CDC recommendations, if I remember correctly, the CDC guidelines, like even if you had a previous rabies vaccine, if you have got bit, it's recommended that you still get another dose of the rabies vaccine. That is part of the actual guidelines, if I remember correctly, because it's like, as you said, essentially it is a death sentence. And like, I don't, obviously, I don't want anybody to pass away, but is any MAGA going to take that gamble of, okay, you believe a vaccine is 100% effective? You take the rabies vaccine, I'm going to go find some rabid dog or bat, and we'll see how it plays out. If you're going to
you had what they said, this is actually multiple people I've gone through this line of questioning with, and they both said, I don't live my life in fear. I don't care if I live or die. Like, you can't make me take a vaccine.
Well, until they get rabies and they have that fear of water that's built into them.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, are there kind of like, so what is Prime's question applied to Canada, right? So what is without the demagogue, and you guys have a sensible president, it seems like right now. I mean, what is Canada's answer to try to build back herd immunity for measles MMR?
That's a good question. As of now, I don't think we are really taking it as seriously as we should be. Like, obviously, or not obviously, but let's say the sad reality is economics tends to overtake public health in certain circumstances. When our relationship with our presumably what was once our closest ally is like ruptured, it's like, we have to like reshape our economy, and like there's not much, at least in the news that I read, the Canadian news that I read, like, not much is spoken anymore these days about the measles outbreak. It really is all about, understandably, the speech that Carney makes at Davos, and the trips that Carney is making to hopefully, turn away from our ally, the United States, or pivot away from our ally, the United States. And so it's like, I don't know that as much as something should be done, I don't know that anything actively is being done, unfortunately.
You go first, Dr. Greg.
Yeah, I mean, that's wild to me, because you would think that they would be going like mass flu campaigns, making it easy. We're going door to door, making sure everyone has it, targeting those rural communities. Like, and it's specifically, you can see it in the maps. It's like pretty, obvious where it is.
Yeah, no, you would think so. But it's more or less, I think it's more or less understood that, like, as Prime brought up, like, and as you brought up, when the demographics is pretty much like in the rural areas, not the cities. This is MAGA country in Canada, and like Alberta, more or less, at least in my eyes, I've never been there. I don't want to be too judgmental, but I sort of view it as, the Texas light of Canada. And I think there's even, if I remember headlines correctly, like, there's some portion of Albertans that like want to separate from Canada or join the United States. As in, there are some people, I think largely concentrated in Alberta, that are totally on board with Canada becoming the 51st state, or the province of Alberta becoming the 51st state.
Okay, well,
so just checked it out. So they have a specialized MMR campaign targeting children 9 months to 14 years in February 2026. So next month they're going to roll it out. Routine scheduling remains with the first dose and the second dose. But yeah, it's going to be February 14th through the 15th, targeting the most vulnerable, which are kids. It blows my mind that these kids are not consenting to be this guinea pig and being offered up as a petri dish for a disease that the parents know about. I cannot get past this in my brain, how bad these parents are and how they are pushing a disease on their child that the child doesn't have to have. And I just can't get past that in my brain.
Yeah, I didn't look into it, so I did see, but there was some sort of headline that like the Trump administration was meeting with Albertan separatists, some Albertan separatist group.
Yeah, that sounds about
Yeah,
right.
I don't know the details there, but those Albertans sound like patriots. They understand what liberty looks like, and I welcome them. But we'll
You
stop
want
that.
those illegal immigrants?
Yeah, I want, I absolutely. I mean, like, Canada's empty. We should take care of it. Anyways, whatever. So, but I think so. So what our friend I was going to say Kobe, Corey.
I don't mind Kobe. That's an upgrade for me.
What Corey was saying, I think is interesting. Like talking about how like there's a lack of like discussion. I mean, one, it's just like there's just a drift that happens in news in general, right? Like news is called the news because we're talking about new things, and just eventually there's going to be like a movement there, but right. I feel like I can't speak to our Canadian friends, right? But except about Albertans who will soon be part of our crew. I I feel like what we're seeing in the medical sphere is what we've seen like in political sphere already, right? And what we're like in the US, right? There is a clear difference between your rights when you're in a red state versus a blue state, right? If you're part of a certain marginalized groups, right, you get more protections in blue states than you do in red states. If you're a woman, right, in terms of your reproductive protection, there's a difference. There's a big difference now, depending on which states that you live in. And at first, when these differences come to light, like it's a big thing, right? And we just spend a lot of talking about them, right? But later on, we just kind of like accept that as like a hazard of like where you happen to be living. And so, like what I can see for this particular crisis in terms of like vaccinations, it's like like I think people are just kind of accept at some point that red states, like you happen if you happen to be there, your chances of getting sicker are just greater because herd immunity is less of a thing, if not a thing at all in some areas. But that's just like that's just what they do and what we do, right? Being in blue states. By that I mean honestly blue enclaves in blue states, right? Because most of this,
cities.
yeah, it's basically the cities, right? Yeah, the cities are what carries the states. In any case, but still, like within our blue enclaves, like we don't do that, right? Like we have we live differently. We interact with the government differently. We have a different culture in terms of how we treat certain minority groups, right? Like those are just different. That's just like the hazard of being over there. If you want to be it, like we tell, like what's the advice for like LGBTQ kids, like you're growing up, right? Like put up with it. We understand it's tough. It gets better, but how does it get better? By moving the hell away from where you're at, right? And moving to one of the big cities. And so, like, what is it? Will this be the advice that we give? Like, again, I don't want this to happen, but like, will this be the advice we give? Like, hey, like, yeah, you're a parent, right? Your parents, and you're not part of the MAGA cult. You just happen to be living in a red area, but like, your kid is immunocompromised, right? Is just the only answer. Hey, you gotta move, right? Like you gotta move to a place that just takes like public health seriously, where you won't have to worry about herd immunity being compromised. that's what I can see, like a clear separation, just like we've seen in so many other areas. That now, public health would be one of those things as well. I don't know.
So it sounded like, if I'm understanding correctly, sort of like even
So
more polarization, or like also now public health causing more or another factor that's just causing, well, United States and Canada to become more polarized, and just
Mm.
like more dividing lines, things that separate us, not just politics, but now obviously public health intersects with politics as well. But yeah, everything you said makes sense to me, unfortunately.
someone asked, Florida, didn't they do no more mandates? Yeah, a lot of states did actually. It's not just Florida recommended it. I don't know if they actually passed it, but Idaho did. Georgia's trying. A lot of them are trying, and a lot of them are failing, which is nice. But it is, it's very bad. A lot of them are either taking, basically allowing, they're removing the requirement altogether, or they are making it very strict so that only your primary care provider can administer vaccines. Like you couldn't go to CVS or you couldn't go to Rite Aid. Also trying to remove access, like the recommendations and stuff like that by and make it harder and harder for healthcare insurance companies to cover it. There's just, it's a whole attack at every level.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
I was going to ask how it works in the United States, because I'm sort of largely, definitely not as informed as you two are on the insurance system. But like, I'm curious, how would it work for insurance? Like, if someone is not vaccinated against whatever condition, but then they get the infection or whatever it is, like, would the insurance like cover it, or rather, or does that increase the chance that the insurance won't cover the treatment for that condition, or it's just accepted that the insurance will cover that? Like, let's say, for example, the measles, the MMR vaccine, of like someone who chooses to not get vaccinated, but now they require hospitalization. Is there a chance that like that won't be covered because it's like the insurance company views that as like, well, this is preventable type of thing, or that's not a thing that occurs?
A lot of times, if you're unvaccinated, if you have no insurance, you can actually get lower cost vaccines. That's how historically has worked. Like where in order to help those people get vaccinated, they'll remove the costs in CVS or in Rite Aid or just, I don't know how they bill or how they get.
No, but I mean, if they're voluntarily choosing to be remaining unvaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
So he's saying this person has insurance, right? You have an insurance plan, and you have decided I'm going to avoid the MMR vaccine or any others, right? And then you come down with that disease that was otherwise preventable if you had gotten the vaccination, right? So like, will that undermine your care? I actually don't know the answer to that. I mean, I don't think it does.
It stops you from getting it. If you're unvaccinated, it stops you from getting organ transplants.
Yeah, but it doesn't stop you getting treated from that condition, though. As in,
will you be covered for?
Yeah, you'll get covered. But I think that's like honestly a really interesting point, and I think that like insurance companies might be, as the cost of all of our healthcare increases, because of these people, because it's so expensive, to treat these measles cases, everyone's insurance is going to go up. That's just.
If I'm an insurance company, not that I have any desire to be, but like, wouldn't that be like the easiest way to not cover someone? Of like, this is almost like a vaccine is, there's robust evidence to demonstrate its efficacy. You're choosing not to get it. Why would we want to treat you for the thing that you are essentially in some ways voluntarily getting sick for?
They could pull the authorization in order to pay for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So a friend on my podcast, Reverie, which we have Mondays 8 p.m. Eastern. His name. Well, we have two libertarians, Scott and a guy.
Whoa! Let's not throw down the. Good thing Scott's not here to. Derail the conversation.
But sometimes what our libertarians friends tell us, right? Like, is like, like they don't like how the state, right, the government interferes how insurance companies work. So specifically we're talking about like home insurance. They're like, well, you can see the skyrocketing price for insurance in places like Florida, because like the government's saying, well, like these insurance companies have to like have some sort of coverage there. But like if the market was left to its own devices, they would like pull out. And you're seeing like, you know, in different pockets, like these insurance companies pulling out because it's too expensive because of climate change, right? Like there's more and more damage coming out. It's just too expensive. I'm sorry, the big issue is that, like, you know, there would be some sort of some states put a cap on how much they can raise their prices. Because like, well, if you just let them raise the prices, you know, to whatever it is, right, wherever the market value is, then this is all sort itself out. So like I'm applying this thinking, and I have big problems with my libertarian friends. But I'm gonna apply this thinking to, like, you know, the medical realm, right? Like if it is the case that like people are making a choice to for them to be exposed to these problems, then like, yeah, like why should the insurance companies cover them, right? Like if you're living in a hazardous area that we know is hazardous, and has, like, you know, massive costs to it, like either you bear that cost yourself in terms of like sky high premiums, or you just don't get that coverage at all. And so, yeah, I don't see why we wouldn't apply that here. My only issue, and I imagine, you know, with what you said previously, Dr. Greg will have an issue with this as well, is children, right? Like you didn't ask to be born to like idiot parents, right? And so if they don't vaccinate you and you come down with something, like I feel like I want to make sure they have care no matter what. But like in terms of an adult, right? Like let's say we give them a few years to like catch up or something, right? Like in terms of an adult, like should we like I was like, of course, like, should we be bearing the brunt of this cost, or should we just be like raising their premiums? Like, yes, you have absolutely have the ability to not bother with a vaccine. It's just that we're gonna raise the price because you are a bigger liability, like point blank period. Like that's what that is. That's what you are, a bigger liability. So shouldn't your premiums reflect it?
I mean, the anarcho-capitalist solution to this thing is that basically healthcare insurance companies say we're going to charge, we need to make a profit, and you're taking an extreme risk that's hurting our bottom line. So we're going to, for the $43,000 for the treatment for the measles, we're going to cover $10,000, and you're going to have to front the $30,000 in order to do that, because it's like it creates a friction of like supply and demand, so that that's too onerous of a cost. So people will rather take the vaccine than pay $30,000, and that's how it would rub.
Yeah, because I think one of the reasons why like the anti-vax movement can like sustain itself is because like for things like measles, mumps, or rubella, largely measles, is like highly infectious, and there is bad outcomes with that. But like for whatever reason, those negative consequences don't really affect like the parents or the people. Like pretty much like since there's no economic factor calculation factored in, it's like, well, they're more or less like they're not getting any real consequences other than they view it as like maybe their child or they get sick with measles. Most people will recover, but there will be people that don't fully recover or they have other bad consequences. But like using the extreme example of, let's say, for example, if I remember correctly, like in Canada, if you need, for example, a liver transplant, but let's say you need a liver transplant because, you know, as a result of you being having a problematic relationship with alcohol, okay, and your liver is now failing, you can get a liver transplant, but then there are very strict criteria that you have to fulfill. Of like, wait, you have to have essentially, if I remember correctly, like proven that you have like been sober for at least 6 months or a year, and then you can like get on the list. I've
Like,
pretty much
the requirements in the
yeah,
U.S.
of like we're not giving you a new liver unless we can have pretty much more or less a guarantee that you're not going to destroy it again, because that's just like a wasted thing, both in terms of the organ itself and obviously the money and the operation to carry it out. And so, like, why is it not the exact same, but sort of a similar analysis? Like if someone gets if someone forgoes the influenza vaccine, and they require hospitalization for then they get infected with influenza, like I don't see why an insurance company would want to like pay for that or not. Like for me, that would be like an easy out of like, well, you more or less.
It's the same reason with the liver transplant or something. If you're unvaccinated, basically you're like the money that and the liver, that the organ that you have is too valuable of an asset that we are giving to you, that you could easily be, it could go to someone else that could actually, make better use of it and have a better chance of like having quality of life, that for longer with it. So we make that decision to say, hey, we're going to give it to this person that actually takes care of their health, that actually makes the right decisions, so I think like in the same way, like, I mean, this is my thing too, that I feel like we have coddled these anti-vax people for so long, and I think that's the approach that I would want to see, actually, is kind of like people actually trying still with compassion for people that are being exploited and people that are being, lied to, and trying to help them, give them a hand up as opposed to pushing them away, because if we push them away, they're only going to slide more into MAHA. But
Sure, I agree.
going after more these kind of like disinformation agents, so doing stuff like that, like trying to actually take these people down. But unfortunately, we elected them in the United States, so it's we can't really coddle them as much as we have given them more power. But that's what I would, if I was Canada, I would be kind of like doing a mass mobile social media campaign where I'm talking about putting real information out there, trying to flood, kind of like doing some like science communication, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to just make sure I understand things correctly. So, from what I understand, and obviously I know that none of you are speaking for the entirety of the insurance industry, but essentially, it does not happen that like someone is refused care because like as a result of them foregoing a vaccine, as in like this was like we're not covering this care because reason given, this was preventable.
For sure. Like, if someone is on the verge of dying and they could only be saved by a liver transplant, and they refuse to get vaccinated, they refuse to and stop drinking in a lot of cases.
But I'm more talking about like not in those, but like someone who gets measles or like requires hospitalization for like measles or influenza, or pick whatever.
You're right in those cases. I'm saying, but I'm giving you an example of how it does happen in our healthcare system right now. So if someone isn't vaccinated and they are effectively given a death sentence by the healthcare system by denying them the life-saving transplant that they need. I mean, it happens already, but you're right in the fact that like if they present with measles to the hospital, they're going to be treated, which by the way that's why it's so messed up. By the way, how crazy that is, and how these healthcare workers are actually being exposed to measles, and we're actually pretty much giving almost a near death sentence to 3% of these people that are vaccinated, that are doing everything right, but they're just healthcare workers working in the field, and now they're unnecessarily exposed to the measles that could kill them. I mean, that's just what's crazy to me.
So I've done an AI search with Perplexity here. So keep that in mind. But so it says that as in the U.S., are people charge higher health insurance premiums if they make the decision to be unvaccinated. says generally no. You can't with an individual or small group insurers cannot charge you a higher base premium just because you are unvaccinated. But some employers have wellness plan surcharges in their own group plans for unvaccinated workers. It says under the ACA, right, the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, health insurers in the individual and most group markets can vary premiums only by age, tobacco use, geographic area, family size, and plan type, not by vaccination status. So this tracks with my understanding of all of this. If there's any mistakes, I do apologize here. But like this tracks with my general understanding. That the ACA limited, what you could charge more for, and I do know from personal experience about these like healthcare surcharges. So, for instance, I used to work at a hospital, and I remember under our health insurance plan, you had to mark down whether you were a smoker or a non-smoker, and you got a lower rate if you were a non-smoker. Oh, well, yeah. And like it said here, tobacco use, specifically one of the things they can actually charge you more for. But not, vaccination status. No, I think I was working way before the pandemic, so this was not like a thing on people's minds to the same level, especially not when the ACA is being created. But yeah, like this does not like give them unvaccinated people any sort of incentive like outside of
Yeah, that
pressure.
seems like a flaw, assuming that's true, which I have no reason to believe that it's not, because
Mhm.
that's sort of like a basic factor of but that seems like a flaw in the ACA or Obamacare. Like
Mm.
because like the tobacco thing makes sense, and to me, like it's more or less like in that same category. Like, are you creating greater risk for yourself for an infection?
Yeah, I mean, look, the problem is that I'll say the ACA was always flawed from the beginning,
True.
Obamacare, because it was a Republican plan. Um, and it was like searching for a half middling market solution plan to the public health crisis, the pre-Obamacare landscape, which is much worse in general for a lot of people. Um, without actually like solving the problem. So we relied on a very middling down the road plan. And so like here is an example of that. And this like it's a big issue. But yeah, there is no way to do it unless you have like again one of these surcharges. Like so like you'll be part of some like wellness program, right? Like in-house wellness program. You follow these steps, and then you don't get like a surcharge, right? Like do these things, exercise this much, and maybe you can like decrease your um like your premiums or something. But like you can't, and then even those surcharges are capped. So later on, it tells me that there's a limit to just how much you can even charge. So yeah, we can't really expose these people if we're still going to have a privatized market solution, right? We can't really expose these people to the actual cost of being unvaccinated. So there's your answer.
Yeah, that's good. That makes sense, and that is unfortunate. And yeah, well, then I dislike the ACA even more now.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, it's sad, man. It's sad. I mean, we've not equipped our public health workers with the tools that they need in order to do the right job. That's the saddest part. It's just, I don't know, man. It's, I just, I don't know when it stops. I don't know. I would have thought that the increase in measles would have been the thing that kind of because people are just not they're not offering any solutions versus a vaccine versus medical science versus all this stuff.
Well, RFK is offering a solution, vitamin A, but obviously that's not
grams
real.
of vitamin C a day, which
Yeah.
is completely a conspiracy that's completely unfounded. It's crazy.
But that is like the talking point of like the vaccine aside, like it as in as long as you're taking, I don't know, whatever the vitamin A, vitamin C, or a high dose vitamin A, it's like, well, then you're fine. Which is obviously like not the case. But like, yeah, it seems to be the unfortunate reality that, until you have like hundreds of thousands of measles cases, or sadly, more children pass away. Like it doesn't seem like it'll be taken seriously. And same thing in Canada. Obviously, as you said, we have a huge outbreak here in Canada that is not being taken seriously, or as serious as it should be.
So again, according to this AI search, and again, this mix is aligns with my understanding, though I don't have a deep knowledge base here. But it aligns with like some headlines I've heard of previously. Some states have moved to restrict discrimination based on vaccination status, particularly in employment and provision of services, which can limit employers' ability to impose such surcharges or require proof of vaccination. Montana, for example, added vaccination status as a protected class in its anti-discrimination law, barring most employers from discriminating, including via benefit differences, based on vaccination status, with narrow exceptions for certain health facilities. What do you think about that? Yeah, like vaccination status being a protected class. Like how far? So we're saying that it'd be fine to do so within the health insurance area to discriminate based on vaccination status. Okay. Well, then what about in other areas? Like, should there be employment discrimination outside, like, working at a hospital? Like, we understand, like, you got to be vaccinated to be, we're working with immunocompromised individuals or something like that, right? So let's put that aside.
Bro, like imagine being Insomniac events. You have EDC 2027 coming up next year. Tens of thousands of measles cases coming out, and you have 200,000 people that are going to be in an area in a rave together. Do you know what I mean? Imagine being, or a company that has like really a lot of money dedicated into making sure there can be a lot of people in a very small amount of space. Like there's going to be a lot of people. I feel like people like the vaccine cards, they thought it was bad with, Biden or something, but there was no vaccine cards to get into it. But like, imagine, like I think that there's a very, very real possibility of people being like, okay, we're going to check your MMR status if you want to get into this event, because we don't want to have, people aren't going to want to go to these events with hundreds of thousands of people if there's a good chance that like you could get this stuff. It doesn't make sense.
Well, I don't know. I would not underestimate the stupidity of people that go to these types of events per se.
Yeah, what's Insomniac? I don't know what that is.
Guys got to live a little bit. Come on, live a little. I am part of this group. I am, and I haven't gone to EDC in like 10 years, but yeah, I mean, think about
these are like music festival, like large. I haven't been, but like these like very large music festivals.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
okay, I wasn't. Sorry. Okay.
Sorry. Big music festivals, or any like Coachella, or something like that, or I don't know, just anything. Think of the Olympics coming up. Like there's going to be so many people in this area. You're going to have a bunch of people.
Actually, is it required to get vaccinated to go participate in the Olympics? I don't know. I guess it must vary by country, but like actually, I don't actually know.
Yeah, I don't think so. Definitely not. I've never seen.
I doubt it.
That would seem like poor planning on the IOC.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe the IOC actually might have special rules, and it's a private organization, so maybe they. I can look it up. But in any case, like, yeah. So, but like, my previous question, I didn't hear an answer for you guys. Like, what would you be fine with, like, further discrimination? Like, so if we're saying we can do so in the health insurance, like, yeah, what about in other areas?
There should be personal exemptions. I don't think that I mean, I don't. Okay, so I'm anti-authoritarian. I don't think that you should be strapped to a board and pump something into your body for sure. But like, there should be social frictions to the point where, yeah, like you do have some added capabilities, some added rights in order to go to large public events. If you're vaccinated, like, absolutely, I think that completely makes sense. I don't believe in personal exemptions. I don't believe in religious exemptions. That you get vaccinated. I mean, personally, I think, like, for kids, you don't get your child tax credit if you don't get vaccinated for your kid. I mean, that's $8,000 a year that you would be losing in the United States. So, but I mean, if you want to pay $8,000 a year for your kid to be unvaccinated, like, okay, like that's weird, but okay. Good luck with that. But I think that you should be barred from like large events that have, you could set a limit to it, be like more than 50,000 people. So like you shouldn't be able to go to an NFL game if you're unvaccinated. Like it's just too much of a risk. It's too much.
Well, that's a reward. NFL is no, I'm just kidding. I'm just anti-football.
There's no constitutional right to go to an NFL game. There's no constitutional right in order to go to like a public, like a huge gathering of 100,000 people.
So if I'm understanding your question correctly, Brian, it's like, could, let's say, for example, should an employer have the right to discriminate based off of vaccination status, as like, oh, you're unvaccinated, therefore you can't work here, type of thing? And you're not just talking about hospitals, but like, let's say a grocery store or whatnot. I think, I'm not so sure. Part of me wants to lean towards yes, but then it also, but I see some potential issues like with that, obviously. Yeah. I don't actually have a clear-cut answer at the moment.
To answer your question previously, again, this is an AI search, so take it with a grain of salt. I said, so can you participate in the Olympics while being unvaccinated? It says you can, but it depends on specific games and your like capital G games. I think meaning like not like events, but like
right,
the Olympic
winter
game.
or summer.
Yeah, something like that. And your it depends on your specific games and your national team. The IOC has not made vaccination an absolute global requirement, but some host cities and national Olympic committees have effectively required it or imposed heavy conditions on the unvaccinated. The International Olympic Committee has stated it supports, in quotes, but does not mandate vaccination for athletes to participate in the games. This means, in principle, being unvaccinated does not automatically bar you from Olympic competition under IOC rules alone. And then it goes through like different examples of like different games, like the Tokyo 2020, 2022, in Beijing. So you can be unvaccinated depending on where there. But yeah, like but using the Olympics for example, I mean we're on that subject. And like dovetailing over what Greg was talking about with his like his music festivals, because he lives and we don't, right? He's got a life, and
yeah, dude.
But like these places are like super spreaders, right? Like now, like not just for COVID, just like for anything.
Yeah, right. Pick your human condition and disease and infection.
They're like super spreaders now. And so like would it be unreasonable to impose, like especially like IOC to impose a global mandate? I don't think so. I mean, like for the health of the city, and not just the city, because like let's say it takes place in, I don't know where the next Olympic Games are taking place, but let's say Houston, right? Or Dallas, which probably have lower vaccination rates. It takes place in Dallas. Like, yes, like it might start there, and Dallas might get a big spike in transmission, but then so are all the cities where those people came from, right? This is an international event, so like it spreads back to wherever the hell they're going. It's like a huge responsibility. So actually, maybe, yeah. Like I'm with Dr. Greg. I think we're in a very similar wavelength here. Like I don't like to be like authoritarian, right? I don't want to strap people down or anything like that and inject chemicals into their bodies. But like, one, you don't have the right to participate in the Olympic Games in general.
These Olympians are already injecting a whole bunch of things into the body. Make no mistake.
Exactly. That's actually my stage 2. You put vaccines into TRT, okay?
Yeah, but even like but I mean beyond that, like I mean in terms of like that were the athletes, that were just about the athletes, but the athletes like that's a limited population which tends to be healthier than like the rest of the population, right? And so like like they generally tend to be lower risk for all these things, right? Like, but I mean, what about the crowd? Should you have to present a vaccination card there? Because I mean that's where like the real threat actually is. It's not like the athletes, it's the crowd.
Well, I think even amongst I don't know for sure, but from what I understand of like what goes on with these athlete Olympic villages, I think there's a lot of mingling that goes along there for potential for spread. But like, I agree with you. You know, probably the high risk is with the crowd, and especially I assume, I don't know for sure, but I assume the crowd of the Olympics is like international from all over the world. So
Yeah.
as you said, you don't want all these people going all back to their respective, countries. That is literally, a super spreader event internationally. That's the next pandemic type of thing.
Should you be required to like present a card?
If that's probably, I mean, as you're coming in, security, their whole thing is like keeping everyone safe. So like, I mean, imagine if someone, okay, I've been trying to think of an analogy on like what actually happens with this vaccine stuff, because it's very frustrating. Like, imagine someone has a damage over time attack, okay, that they just put out into the group. Okay, I'm a warlock. I have a capability in order to AoE, some people, and
this appeals to me.
and I'm gonna and with 100,000 people, I have the capability to do an AoE that's going to take out people that have less than 100 hit points. If you have 1,000 hit points, you're fine. But like, hey, if you have 100 less than 100 hit points, you're gone. Like if that person had a weapon, or if I could do that and I could cast that spell and I could do that, would you let that person into your event? No, of course not. They all weapons get stopped, right? No, there's nothing that's allowed in. So the idea that like that people can just freely go and just spout this damage over time attack on people, without consent, and that you're right too, Prime. You're exactly right. It's not just those people; it's the people that they're living with. So are people actually like informed enough to know that like their mom that just got cancer, that's immune compromised now because now she's in chemotherapy and she started her medication and now she's really going to be, she's very likely going to die. Like, we're protecting that person too.
Yeah. Well, I don't disagree with your analogy. Like obviously, I think the main message is clear to me. I think maybe for some people it might be a little bit too abstract, but I don't actually know for sure. But sort of what springs to mind? Well, for me, one of the more direct analogies is like, the drunk driver behind the wheel, but like most people know that. But I think I'm curious how people would react to this example of like, okay, think of a person, that they have the absolute worst body odor imaginable. Okay, like as in like it's almost impossible to breathe around them. Okay, would you let that person to that event? And what if their body odor is contagious? Would you take a chance in attending that
body odor? Wow.
I think most people would be like, get that person away from me, even though let's say you can live technically a healthy life with this worst body odor ever, but I think for whatever reason there's more visceral reaction for people.
Yeah, I mean, if spitting on someone is illegal, it's assault. You can't go around spitting on people, but you can spit measles onto people completely free. I don't understand it. I don't understand. Like, basically, unvaccinated people are saying, like spitting on someone when you don't have a disease is by definition less harm than going into a room unvaccinated with measles. So it's like, so what's illegal again? Which one's the illegal one? Oh, spitting on you. Oh, why? Oh, because it's an assault thing and it's a consent thing. Okay, well, I don't consent for you to spit on me with measles. Done. Like I don't understand how, even like in the libertarian like viewpoint of the world, where it's like, oh, you're vaccinated, so you're shielded and that's okay. It's like, no, like even in the world where you don't have any disease, you're not allowed to spit on my face. Okay? I don't care that you don't have any disease. I don't care that you haven't caused me any like actual physical harm. Like, it's still illegal.
Yeah, I don't.
No.
And well, we sort of tried to have this conversation with one of the callers a few weeks ago, like that case of typhoid Mary, if I remember correctly.
Oh yeah.
And like this person did not. I don't think they were aware of it or whatnot, but like that seemed to be a foreign concept to this person, or rather, they just whatever they were just repeating of
Another
like,
failure of the education system. I mean, like typhoid Mary should be a very basic example, right? Like such a illustrative case of like when public health fails.
yeah, that should be
Um,
taught in schools, like in whatever elementary, primary, or early high school. Like people should be aware of that. Not that I think that like this was like an amazing thing, but like there was clear action that was taken, and I'm sure. Well, it might be a good topic just to bring up and cover, just because I'm sure it'll bring up debate in class. Okay, even amongst like high schoolers, but it's like yeah, like I think most people would agree that in that situation, the government was justified in like keeping this person like confined. Like you can't just go around literally spreading your disease all around town and literally getting people infected with a serious disease and infection.
yeah, man. It's like, and this is towards Dr. Greg's point, and it's because humans have problems with like abstract dangers, right? Like, um, yes, like if someone is coming at a knife with a knife at you, you get it, right? Like I'm like I might die here, and they can understand like the painful outcome that's about to happen to them. Like we're very well equipped to manage that. But if that same person's coming at you with a microorganism that they could have, like not had, right? Or chances are they would not have had if they had taken proper precautionary steps. They're coming up with a microorganism that can kill you just as dead, right? That can be even more painful in the dying, right? Depending on how long it takes for you to go out. Like people seem to have a very difficult time like understanding that abstract concept. We treat it differently. Um, and yeah, I don't know what the answer is sociologically, because in the end, right, like um while I'm definitely very heavily sympathetic to our friend Dr. Greg's argument, like at some point we need to apply that to society, right? We need to apply these things to society and on a practical level, sociological level, even though again I think our friend Dr. Greg is right on the money. um I don't know if this works. I don't know if we can get buy-in on this on a political level. Um, and if not, then that means we have to like maybe look for other solutions. Like my like the one problem I have is like the government having more data on us, right? Like I don't want to like continue on to like the growing amount of data that the government has on each individual person, right? Like so like going to the Olympics, well, we have to present some sort of card, right? Well, that card is going to be, as we saw during the pandemic, going to be forged by a lot of people. And so, well, how do we do this? Well, maybe if we have like a database where we can tie your vaccination status to an ID, right? Maybe put that in an app
Or a microchip.
that's or a microchip, but that's like that has some sort of cryptography attached to it, right? And then like the individuals or businesses could like scan it, right? Scan your phone, like a QR code on your phone, and it could say like vaccinated or not vaccinated, give you an approval. Now that's something we could do, and it would accomplish a lot of what Dr. Greg is asking for there. But now the government has a more intrusive look into your life, and the more data is being collected, and like hopefully we as a society are understanding now there's big consequences when there's more data being collected.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
They
like again,
have your vaccination status and your location at that time, right?
and your location. That's a good point. That's a very good point, actually. Like you have your location there at the time, and so like I from a sociological perspective, I'm not sure if there's an easy answer here.
Yeah.
So there's.
I was going to ask if you're okay with that compromise, or like, yeah, is that a compromise? I guess you're willing to make of like that sacrifice potentially of giving that type of data to the government for potentially increased security at a public event.
I think so. One, California already has all your vaccine stuff. Like I didn't. There was a time period where they didn't recommend boosters, and I was looking at the data, and it was obvious that the antibody titer goes down at 6 to 9 months. So and they didn't recommend it until a full year later. So I was like, well, I'm not going to go 3 months without, or I saw it at 9 or 10 months, and I was like, I'm just going to get another one. I just went in there and basically said, like, I'm going to get another vaccine. I've never done this before. I've never gotten a vaccine, and obviously I had, and then so then that was off my immune, my card, and then I got the next one 6 months later. So every 6 months I was getting them for a little bit, and then I go in, and they're like, "Oh no, you've already gotten it," and I was like, "What? What do you mean?" And they pulled up the California vaccination records, the public health records, and like, there you are. That's who you are, right? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, yeah, yep, you already gotten it, so you can't get it again. And I was like, oh. So and you can look it up right now. You can look up your COVID vaccination records through California public health records. Other countries do this like through GPS data, and it helps know and notify other people in the area that like. I think that if you're losing rights if you are unvaccinated, I definitely think that you should have like a GPS thing on your phone that alerts people in your area that like do not go in this spot in order to because there's an unvaccinated people that could have measles or something in this area, so avoid this area for 2 days. I think that's completely fair. You could anonymize it, and you can just say, "Hey, this area is not okay. You can't, you can't like travel this if you get a pop up." That California actually had like an app that was trying to do that. I signed up for it, and it didn't really work that well. But they did have an app that was trying to do that. Basically, say, avoid these areas. There's been positive cases in them, all that kind of stuff. Hotspots. I think that's totally fine, man. I think that's totally fine. You can anonymize the data. It doesn't have to be like your name is out there. But I think again, like it's like, again, or people just get the fucking vaccine. Like what the hell? Like how fucking hard is this? Stop being such a fucking pussy. Just get the fucking vaccine. Like, God damn it.
I don't disagree with you, but I don't think that approach is going to work. I think historically,
no, I think that's what we should do. We should fucking, like, seriously, why are you so afraid of a shot? Just stop being like, let the kids and the future generations grow up in a world that you grew up with, free of communicable diseases popping up every month. 17 different vaccines. And it's just like, holy shit. Get the vaccine. Why? Because measles is real, and it causes a disease that hurts people. That's why. And there's no reason not to be vaccinated. And that's why. Like, that's crazy. I mean, it's crazy not to be. It's so crazy because I was debating anti-vaxxers since 2020 on this, and they were always, I'm not anti-vaccine. I'm just anti this vaccine. And I was always like, doesn't smell right to me. And I gave them the benefit of the doubt because it wasn't mRNA technology. And I'm like, well, it's under emergency use authorization though, man. Like as soon as it's FDA approved, I'll get it. FDA approval comes. Oh, it's like, well, there's a lot of stuff, that we don't know. And then it's just every year, we don't have 20 years of data. Now we're against measles. We knew the entire time. Like we knew about this the entire time. We should have just been harder on them, and from the start. And we let them slide. We coddled them, and we didn't get anything out of society by it. It's not like it's it's not like by being like coddling them and letting them be libertarian about this, a bunch of them are like, I'm gonna, you know what? Yeah, you're right. You didn't force us to get the vaccine, so I'm gonna trust you in order to get this done. You know what I mean? Like it's not happened the other way, where it's like, you know what? The Biden administration didn't actually increase and ramp up vaccine access, and mask mandates did go away, and vaccine status mandates, you know, they did go away, and like, you know what? I trust the government more. It hasn't been that way. It's gone the opposite direction, where we've gone more laissez-faire on it, and they've gone more and more insane. We haven't gotten anything out of it.
So I don't disagree with anything that you've outlined. And like in retrospect, it is kind of funny and also sad looking back of like, yeah, a lot of the talking points back then, especially in the middle of lockdown of like, you know, this is the talk about was like, this is the play is in once they've implemented all of these measures, they're never going to, you know, roll it back as in this is the slow walk into, you know, all of it just being locked in their houses for the rest of time. And like that clearly, at least I can tell from my experience of like, we went from here in Quebec, like we had actual curfews, but those were rolled back, and all the other measures, like as far as I could tell, it's more or less back to normal, or pretty much all back to normal. Um, but like, and so I agree with that. We didn't get anything out of it in terms of like at the end of the day, the people that were against it are still against it. There's no amount of evidence. The approval, like you said, we have much longer term data. Okay, we now have mountains amounts of data. Okay, not 20 years worth, obviously, but we have. When it comes to vaccines, I don't know what other evidence you'd be looking for to demonstrate that these vaccines are overall safe and effective. Yeah, what I would say is, yeah, like if maybe a little bit harsh, but in the vein of one of the articles that you posted in our group chat about you know new technologies and such. I think if there's like a public record of you calling to question the mRNA vaccine, I don't think you should have access if you need it to like mRNA technology. Like if somewhere down the line, when this mRNA platform is available to like treat cancer and a whole host of other conditions, if you were never on board with the mRNA platform, you just didn't believe in it to begin with, I don't know that you should have access to this technology. If in fact that's possible to enforce, but it's probably not.
Yeah, I mean that'd be interesting. You're like, I mean, yeah, if you think that's a good point. I mean, we could wrap this up at a lot of different. Like, if you don't believe the Earth is round, should you get access to the satellites that give you internet?
Yeah, or to put it more in this vein, if you don't believe in bacteria and you get a bacterial infection, should you get antibiotics? I'm not so sure about that.
I mean, for real though, I mean, people, it's not so much like people, you know, but it's also their kids. I mean, that's the real thing. Like the reason we have seatbelt laws in the country isn't necessarily for the person that is, you know, my life is my life, man. That's like what it is. It's like, no, like if you die in a seatbelt preventable accident, your child becomes basically a product of the state. And now we have to raise your child, or your grandparent does, or your spouse does, like alone. And now it's going to be like hard for our society in order to deal with that. So therefore we make laws to protect people from themselves, and so we can like, you know, have those people around so that they can better raise their children too. So it's like, it's the tertiary effects that's why we have laws. That's why we have laws that exist in the country. That's why, like, a great example, and Neon Turtle in my chat said it's like secondhand smoke is a great example of this. Like, we know that secondhand smoke kills, so therefore we stop it from happening in crowded areas, like inside of restaurants.
Well, actually, do we? So I'm going to sort of like use the talking points or the strategy that anti-vaxxers use. Like, do we have like the randomized controlled trial to demonstrate that secondhand smoke actually causes cancer, I don't think that trial exists.
Exactly. It strengthens your lungs, apparently. That's what
Yeah.
that's what they
But
were saying for
I'm old
decades.
enough to remember when restaurants, like you had your smoking section and your not smoking section. And that was totally thankfully phased out.
And in Vegas, you're allowed to smoke everywhere. That's the
Really?
way.
Oh, okay. I'm probably never going to Vegas then.
That's where you're allowed to smoke everywhere. It's a God-given, patriot cigarette every time that you walk around. It's but for real, I mean, like we have created public health laws before. It's not like this is like the first time. I just I don't know. I think we have to, what Prime started us off with is like, how do we like stop this from happening? I think you stop this from happening by like going into these media bubbles that people are in and bursting them and giving them tough love, saying like, hey, you guys are absolute wusses on this. You're harming yourself and your children. It's not okay what you're doing. And like maybe the person in the debate like doesn't listen, but maybe the viewers that look at that and say, hey, maybe that is kind of weird. Maybe I am doing something bad, for my kid. I don't know.
I think that's definitely, that will work for some demographic, but I think going back to what was brought up earlier, like as Prime read out, like it seems like insurance companies can't actually discriminate based off of vaccination status, or like that can't be a factor of like why they deny like coverage. But I think insurance companies would want to deny coverage based off of vaccination status. That would be the easiest cost saving measure. Where like, yeah, I think it all goes back to, not all, but I think that aspect of the ACA is like hugely damaging. I don't know for sure, but I have very little doubt that if given the choice, insurance companies would absolutely want to not cover the end result of someone not being unvaccinated. Because that's like the easiest cost saving measure in my mind for an insurance company. It's like, oh, you didn't get this $20 the MMR vaccine, and now you require hospitalization. That's probably tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Sorry, can't help you.
I think it's also interesting that, like, according to that AI search, that the cohort of people probably most against Obamacare are being protected by Obamacare from the consequences of their dumb actions, right? Like, if it wasn't for this thing that I'm sure they curse out, like this cohort of individuals who are most likely deep within the conservative media sphere, right, and who talk about how this is, socialism. It's definitely not. I wish it was. That is destroying the country, being Obamacare. But that, if it wasn't for that, they'd be paying absolutely sky high premiums right now. Interesting, as always.
Yeah, it's that's what sucks too, man. It's like, not only is it like a lack of public health that's going to hurt people, but it's like just the money, the money cost alone. You're like, what? I hate to bring that down to it, but I think that if we're talking in dollars and cents, I think it's easier for people to understand. Like, vaccines are an 11-to-1 economic driver. Like, that's why governments subsidize them. That's why they want to make them. That's why they allow pharmaceutical companies to make them in batches that are very large and subsidized and all that kind of stuff. That's why it happens.
Can you explain that? 11-to-1 economic driver.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the like when you give someone like universal basic income, right? They're going to spend that money directly, and so you're giving that person that money, and then it's spent in the economy, and then that company spends money in the capital expenditure. So it's like it actually generates more income and more of an economic driver than just the dollar spent. versus like tax cuts for billionaires, for example. You give billionaires more money, they take that money, they buy stock with it, and it sits there and dies. That's like a great example, right? Like it doesn't really move around in the economy. Versus like a vaccine, like vaccines allow people to go to work, go to large areas. They allow them to not be sick all the time. They allow them, kids to grow past the age of 13. Vaccines cause adults, that before vaccines and antibiotics, 50% of kids died before the age of 13. 50%. Now 50%. Now it's 4%. Now it's 4%. So I mean, so those kids can now grow up, and now they are part of the economy, and now they're part of the the economic driver too on that stuff. So it's like it's cyclical, and they're so cheap. Vaccines are so cheap. I mean, this is why like the Gates everyone dogs the Gates Foundation on this, but why is such a big thing for the Gates Foundation vaccines? Because as an ROI, it's like the number one thing, the cheapest thing that you can do is for a nation that's plagued with disease is to vaccinate that for that disease. It's preventative medicine.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's pretty much like your biggest bang for your buck. But unfortunately, it seems like for either many or most humans, like pretty much that the consequences of that don't generate this like salience, or it's like, a child growing to adulthood, it's hard for you to connect with that sort of consequence or that outcome, as opposed to it's like your premiums going up, or it's like, oh, I actually have to pay for this medical care. That is much more salient on a person's mind. Like, oh, this is a direct consequence of my actions, so to speak, or rather, I can actually, it's more tangible to them. And that's why, I think that would probably, I don't know for sure, but I think, again, being able to discriminate against, or rather for unvaccinated people to cause premiums to go up, or for them to actually be in charge of paying for the healthcare, would probably result in more change in behavior. Then, even though you have the better argument and the overall better outcomes, for whatever reason, it just doesn't seem to resonate in people's minds. Just like the easiest way or the simplest action of like putting on your seatbelt is like one of the easiest ways to protect yourself in a car. But for whatever reason, some people, there's still a significant proportion of people that still just will not put on their seatbelt for whatever reason, even though, but just that simple act alone, you increase your safety in a car tenfold. But for a reason, since it's like you doing nothing, like just the effort of like the extra motion of putting on your seatbelt, that's like a barrier to entry type of thing. And for some people, doing nothing, since that's the path of least resistance, like they're just going to go with that type of thing. I don't know if my overall point made sense, but I think this aspect of salience is an unfortunate reality.
Yeah, I agree. Have you anything to say? I feel like I'm rambling. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I think I might have to tap out soon here.
Okay. Yeah.
But I thought this conversation was interesting. In the end, I think the biggest piece of preventative care, other than literally vaccinating people, is really just education. I got to default back to that, because by the time like these bad ideas have metastasized as they have within our culture, like it's too late now. What we're doing, right, is we're treating the disease before, like rather than like taking steps to make sure we never like the disease never appears, right? And we are doing our best to manage the symptoms of something that could have been avoided altogether. If we have a better educated populace on everything across the board, right, honestly, right? But especially on, in this case, healthcare, on what vaccines do, but more than that, like that stat that Dr. Greg gave us in terms of children making it to adulthood. Like, that's huge. Like, I knew it was a large number, but I didn't know what it was, right? And if you're telling me 50%, okay, then. But like, if that's, if it's as he says, I mean, that's like, people need to like really conceptualize that, right? And we need to, be having media that puts this forward, because there is a term for this, and I can never remember it, ever remember it, but like, media helps construct a shared reality, like understanding of the past, right? Like, and you can most clearly see this, right? Like the difference here when you think of like events from like the 1950s and 1960s, because like the media that we show is in black and white when we think of those individuals, right? That was like black and white TV. We think of them in black. We honestly think of them in black and white, right? We think of that era there. But beyond that, like in terms of like how the people, how they dressed and how they acted, right? How they interacted with each other, like what that society was like for those of us who didn't live through that period, right? Or at least weren't conscious during that period. Our understanding, what we have, like we can talk to each other about the 1950s, 1960s and have a shared understanding. That's because of media. Media created that for us. So on that same note, like when media leaves things out or alters things, right, or gives us like a vast misunderstanding, like the Middle Ages in Europe, right, the medieval times, right, like that, like people have like a very vast misunderstanding of what that period looked like. But that's because media has created that reality. So specifically, like before vaccines, like we need like media that shows what that looked like, right? Like people need to understand it. Like they need to like see it in books. They need to or read it in books. See it in television and movies, right? This is a part of reality that we very rarely touch. Like I remember seeing a few things when I was a kid about like some like some child dying and some family like grieving over it, right? Because they call it a disease. But like that was, while like the disease was like a plot device to like get like to have drama within family, like the idea itself of focusing on what this actually means, that this is just a regular occurrence, that yes, kids are just dying all over the place. This is just like what families dealt with, just how things were, right? And how things were for all like human history, like and there's probably those numbers are probably higher again before we had things like a sewage system in toilets, right? Like we talked about last week, right? Like it's even higher when you're handling your own feces. But like since we don't have that public understanding, that since that's hidden from us, like we don't have that common knowledge to draw on, right? And then act on. So say like that's a past we don't want to go back to. And so like yes, it takes an education. It takes for people to be exposed to these things, to have that part of our understanding of the world. When it's completely lost to us, then yes, like grifters and charlatans can actually convince you that yeah, measles is not that bad. Crazy.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. One of the last things that I'll say, and maybe I don't know, but maybe offer a little bit of hope, because ultimately, this is not like a partisan issue, or rather, things have changed dramatically in terms of, I don't know if anybody remembers, but if you go back 20 or let's say mid 90s, 2000s, like anti-vax was like that was definitely heavily on the left. Gwyneth Paltrow, Jenny McCarthy. There was a huge anti-vax movement on the left, and the whole goop from Gwyneth Paltrow. But yeah, but I don't know exactly what has shifted. But not that everyone on the left now is like super pro-vaccine, but I think the numbers are clear of like now the anti-vax movement is on the right, and so it's like what has happened that it went from the left to largely on the right, because like yeah. Like this is a whole thing around celebrities, largely like in California, again, like Gwyneth Paltrow, of like natural remedies, and healing crystals, and don't vaccinate your children. And Jenny McCarthy, wife of Jim Carrey at the time, notoriously anti-vax, and I think still anti-vax to this day. And so it's what is that? Or not really a partisan issue, or what has changed? I don't know, but clearly, all that to say is things can change. But now, hopefully, the shift, we can now stamp it out on the right, or now reconvince the right that vaccines are good. And I'll leave it there for now.
Yeah. Nice, guys. Well, thank you guys for coming on. I appreciate it. That was a really good article. Thank you, Corey, for recommending it. It was actually good numbers for the first time on the decline and the money, and I feel like the real, sorry, not money, the infrastructure that's being lost because of this MAHA insanity. So tens of thousands of PhDs, guys. It's awful. So anyway, guys, shoot, we didn't do. Can you guys say your just chat real quick so people can follow you on TikTok real quick? If you don't have your,
not even in there. Prime Kai, PRIMECAYES. That's where you'll find me.
Yeah, I'll put it in. I'll put it in.
Thank you.
Guys, and then it's Corey Campbell.
It's Corey Campbell.
Twitch, Twitter technically, YouTube and kick.com. You'll find me. You'll find Corey there as well. We do our regular debates. So come join us. We'd love to have you. We have really raucous debates. So anything that interests you, give me a follow. I'd love to have you. Leave it there. Thanks so much.
All right. Well, thanks for the chat, guys. See you next week.
Always a pleasure. See you next week. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.